Hey guys, Samurai here, back again with another video, and the anime is turning 25 this year at April 1st, Friday. And I've been thinking, our main character Ash Ketchum has had a lot of rivals, and people over the years have been sharing their opinions on the rivals, whether that be ranking videos, video essays, or just reviews on leagues, sharing their thoughts about rivals, whether those rivals be good, bad, or just in the middle. And I'm going to give my ranking on them today. Well, I know I did this video earlier in the past, that video is kinda unpolished and I kinda hate it to guts. So I decided, why not? Let me give an entire ranking on Ash's rivals. And maybe, who knows, next month, if you guys like this video enough, I'll rank all of the companions' rivals. I don't know where I was going with this. But let's get started with me ranking Ash's rivals from Gary all the way down to Cross from the movies. Yes, I'm including the AU rival, but they will be at the end. And no Journey's characters like B or Leon, if you count Leon as a rival, will appear because Journey's isn't finished. And while B's story looks like it's finished, we just don't know for sure since Journey's is very unpredictable. Anyways, let's get started with the video. Me ranking Rash's rivals from Gary to Cross, but it's gonna say from worst to best in the title, because that just makes sense. Alright, so first up, the classic, Gary Oak. Honestly, I like Gary's character. While he was never my favorite or stood out, I thought he was a solid character and I enjoyed his presence in the series. I liked how he was kind of an obstacle and a goal for Ash to reach, kind of like a benchmark, but I also like how he wasn't always winning his matches. In the Indigo League, he actually lost before Ash did. This actually opened up the world a lot more, and I love it when the anime does that, showing that even Ash's rivals aren't the best at what they do. Gary gets an A rank. I think he's a solid rival, and I loved his return in Journeys. Next up, we have Richie. Now, Richie is an interesting character because he started the trend of rivals who appear in the 11th hour just to beat the main character. Except Richie got a couple of episodes for development, and by development I mean the Indigo League was a mess and they gave him an episode right in the Indigo League that could have fit anywhere in the original series due to its nature. However, I can't really hate Richie. He's still another classic rival, and we did get to see him multiple times, whether that be through Chronicles or in the two-parter with Indigo and the Johto saga, or the Whirlpool Islands arc, whatever you want to call that jumble of episodes. I thought Richie's enjoyable. While he isn't my favorite character, or a character I need to see again in the future, honestly, I think Richie is solid. We can give him a solid C tier. He's not anything special, but he's okay. Next up, we have Harrison. Now, Harrison is the same class as Richie. Ash didn't really have a lot of Johto rivals, and when you might be saying, what about Macy? While her and Ash did battle multiple times, I count a rival as someone Ash battled in the league, and since she never battled in the league, I'm not ranking her this time, sorry guys. However, Harrison, I guess he's neat. He did introduce a new Pokemon being Blaziken, and while I like the Blaziken line, it's not my favorite. However, the battle between him and Charizard was pretty interesting to see, not to mention, he did get in the episode before a league to introduce how strong he was. So, I have to give him at least the C tier. He's definitely a strong rival, but I don't have to see him again, and I think nobody else has to either. He's okay. Next up we have Morrison, and he's voiced by Goku. That's pretty much it. Morrison is a decent character at best. He has a strong and very broad personality, but he didn't really make much of an impact. His battle with Ash was very interesting as he was one of the rivals who was kinda scared about fighting his friend, and I thought that was kinda interesting, but they never really expanded on that. Maybe if he returned they could, but I don't see Morrison returning. I just see him as an AG only character, and let's be honest, let's keep it that way. I'm gonna be honest, let's keep it that way. But let's move on to Tyson. Tyson has a really cool jacket. That's about it. His Meowth was cooler than he was, and I think everybody knows that too. I enjoy Tyson's character, but do I need to see him again? Absolutely not. He made quite the ripple in the AG saga with Ash losing to a Meowth, which honestly, if you're hungover about Ash losing to a Meowth, not all Meowths are the same. That's like saying because Ash's Glalie beat a Charizard, it could beat any Charizard. Alon's Charizard? Yeah, Ash's Glalie could totally beat that by that logic. It depends on the trainer, not on the Pokemon sometimes. But honestly, Tyson gets a solid C tier. Now we move on to probably one of the best rivals and my favorite character in the anime, being Paul. Paul was a rival who challenged Ash's ideology in terms of training. And while he also offered a great challenge, what made Paul so great is that he was a character outside of Ash. He traveled different regions and the same amount of regions Ash did. He went through Hoenn, Kanto, and Johto, and they were both in the Sinnoh League. Their battle in the Sinnoh League remains one of the best to this day, not to mention he had a killer dub track in the series. Honestly, Paul is pretty solid. He gets an S tier. Paul is a definitely good rival, and with his return in Journeys, I would definitely love to see what they do with him in the future. Next up, we have Barry. Now, Barry is my GOAT. I love Barry's character. Barry is just very expressive. While he didn't get to battle Ash in the Sinnoh League, which was a huge letdown, I'm still glad that we got to see Barry versus Paul, because that match was still pretty decent. Barry did appear multiple times throughout the series and offered Ash a fair challenge every time they did fight. So I honestly have to give Barry an A rank. Yeah, I'm putting him as high as Gary. That's how much I like this dude. Anyways, let's move on to Nando. He did contests and battles. That's pretty much it. Nando, there's not much to say about this dude, to be honest. He exists. That's pretty much it. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of Nando fans out there, but he really just doesn't do anything for me, in my opinion. Honestly, he's pretty mid, and I think we can keep him that way. He's more interesting than Morrison, Richie, and Tyson, because we got to see him throughout the series, but he was more of a coordinator than a battler, if we're gonna all be honest. So I'm gonna give him a B tier. Next up, we have Conway. Conway, I'm gonna be short and blunt about it. He gets a C tier. Didn't really show much. He was okay, appeared in the league, had a Dusk Noir that was probably from the summer camp. Other than that, pretty mid. Moving on. Next up, we have Peak Fiction himself, Tobias. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, you count Tobias and not Macy? Yes, I do. Tobias was a character who also appeared in the 11th hour, except he had legendaries, and while a lot of the fandom thinks of Tobias as the one character that they never need to bring back, I honestly don't agree with this. I thought Tobias was a great addition to the anime. Not to mention, it actually gave Ash most of his legendary feats, let's be honest. Anytime we talk about Ash's feats, we're usually talking about how Pikachu tied with a Latios and Sceptile beat a Darkrai. That's what we're usually talking about, and we wouldn't have gotten those two without Tobias. And while a lot of people said that Tobias should have been introduced in the series, I agree, he probably should have gotten some background, but you have to admit, he did make an impact and a huge splash for the time he was given. I think he gets an A tier. Yeah, I'm putting him on the same tier as Gary and Barry, and none of you guys can stop me. Next up, we have Trip. Lost Potential. Trip was a character who was interesting on concept, but we barely got to see him, and then when we did, he didn't really influence us that much. The times we did get to see him that were good were the tournament arcs, where we got to see him lose to other characters other than Ash, and I think that really opened up the world, just like I said with Gary. Honestly, if Trip was given a bit more screen time and a more distinct personality, because a lot of people called him Paul too, and I think that was the way he was introduced as. If Trip was introduced in a way better light and not calling Ash from the boonies, maybe a lot more people would open up to him. That's just my opinion though. Next up, we have Stefan, Best Wishes rival, let's be honest. Best Wishes has a lot of rivals, and Stefan is probably the best one. While you all thought he was going to be a character of the day, when he reappeared, I think we were all happy for it. He offered some of the best battles in the anime and the best battle in the league. He was great to see and had an explosive personality. He definitely gets an B tier, along with Trip getting a B tier also because of his lost potential. I'm sorry I didn't mention that before. Next up, we have Cameron. D tier. He's the only D tier. I don't hate many Ash characters or any characters in the anime in general. I don't hate many rivals, but Cameron is the only one I just can't stand. His battle with Ash was actually really good, just not the outcome. Honestly, he should have won that. Honestly, he should have lost that battle. Cameron is a mixed character, and honestly, I think they should have just replaced him with Charon or Hugh. That would have been the best choice of action to go with. Let's be honest, I don't think anybody really likes this dude. And moving on to Virgil. He's less of a character than Tobias was, and he got a full episode. Let that sink in. We barely got to see him battle, and there was no point of introducing him. Why did we introduce him if Ash was never going to fight him in the first place? I don't know. So he gets another D tier. Not because he's bad, but because he has no reason to exist. At least Tobias got to fight Ash and has some form of relevancy. This guy doesn't even have a form of relevancy, and flippin' is there. Next up, we have Bianca, and she's honestly a C tier. I loved Bianca's personality, and I thought she was great to be around, but she doesn't really need to be there, and honestly, if she returned, I would be happy, but I'm not clamming for it, so she gets a C tier. Tierno is one of my favorite rivals. He definitely gets an A tier. He's so full of personality, unlike his game counterpart, and it was just great to see on screen. His battles with Ash, the little that we got to saw, were great, and I loved his battle with Sawyer. It was truly a great battle, and I loved watching it. He gets an A tier. Trevor, on the other hand, D tier. He's exactly like his game counterpart, and I think that's more just due to a lack of screen time. I feel if XY was given a bit more time, maybe we all would have warmed up to Trevor, but due to the lack of screen time he got, Trevor just kind of sunk to the wayside, so B tier. Next up, we have Sawyer. Sawyer is a really interesting character, and I love how they went with a different form of a rival this time, being more like Wally from the games, and I honestly love that part about him. However, he did kind of develop a bit fast, and it was kind of sporadic. A lot of people did open my eyes to that, but I can ignore that because his battle with Ash was super cool in the anime. Honestly, I think I prefer this battle to Mega Charizard, but that's just me. Let's move on to Alon. And while a lot of people don't like Alon as a rival, my only issue with Alon as a rival is, from what we've seen, Alon has changed from the original Mega Evolution special, but he still acts the same. And this is more of an Alon as a character, but I wanted to see him act more antagonistic, not mean the same way Trip or Gary was, but more antagonistic as in he's trying to do something bad and we can visibly see it, so when he does get reprimanded for his actions later, we feel it more. But that's just me. I think Alon's a super solid character, definitely goes into the S rank. Now, Gladion. This is an S rank. I love Gladion's character, and this is not even counting the games. Gladion was such a good character in a very comedic-like series like Sun and Moon. Being one of the only few serious characters really brought me to his attention. Not to mention his team was super cool with Umbreon, Zoroark, and Silvally. I love me some Dark types, and I love me some Gladion, so he gets an S rank. Howe. I was about to say Hop. Howe is a very lost potential character also. He was introduced way too late in the series, and while I did hear that was due to the VA and some problems, we can't really blame real life for what happens in a story sometimes. I think Howe definitely could have used some more screen time. Maybe if he was introduced in the second season rather than being introduced in the last and gotten a tons more screen time. Not to mention his battle in the league with Ash was kind of underwhelming. I think we can all admit it. Whether it was funny or not, we have to admit Howe got done dirty. He gets a C tier. Sorry, Howe. And finally, we have Cross. Cross is a weird character. He feels like if they took Gary's cockiness and Paul's training method and mix it into one. And while you think that would be good, he's honestly okay. He's nothing crazy, just he exists. So he gets a B tier. Only because he has Incineroar, and I think the way they try to make him was interesting. And also, AU Ash doesn't really have a lot of rivals, so there's not much to compare him to. So B tier it is. And that's my video on Ash's rivals. I did this video unscripted, and that's because next week I have the first anniversary, not next week, for the first anniversary, for the 25th anniversary, I have something extremely big planned. It's a what if that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. It also works as an April Fool's video, so get excited for that. Also, you know, just like this video was longer, and that's because I was rambling on for most of it. This wasn't scripted, so you can listen to this video in the background. Also, please like, subscribe, and share. Samurai out.